Hey, friend and colleague, it's Nikki from Full Voice Music. On our show this week, episode 205, my special guest is Jeff Costello. Jeff has decades of experience as a musician, a singer, a music educator, a voice teacher. And today, we're talking about a very important teaching tool, and that is YouTube. Specifically, we're talking about why so many teachers feel that it's a less than experience. Debunking some myths and serving our students right here on the Full Voice Podcast. Hello, welcome. Thank you for pressing play. Thank you for tuning in, my friend and colleague, wherever you are tuning in from. I hope you are doing well. If you are listening to this podcast at time of release, it's the end of April, and here in Nova Scotia, it is a cold, wet, and rainy spring. But you know what? Those flowers are starting to come up in the garden, and everything's starting to turn green, and it is hopeful. And I hope that you are keeping well and keeping your spirits high. I want to just go do some housekeeping before we get started with our interview with Jeff, which is an amazing interview. I love talking to Jeff. I think Jeff and I could talk all day about music and singing and teaching. And I actually invited him to Nova Scotia to hang out with us because we would probably have a great time. So I think I would invite all of my guests to Nova Scotia to hang out with us. But Jeff, you're up there. Before we get started, I want to address a couple of things. First and foremost, to all our friends and colleagues, Full Voice Music is dedicated in making teaching easier and serving teachers. And right now, the world is a dumpster fire. There's so much going on. We have an election here in Canada. We have our friends in the U.S. We have the tariff war. I want everybody to know that there are no fees, extra fees, or charges when you purchase or order anything from our website. We are committed to making sure that we can serve people and fulfill our orders. And we're working really hard. So I've gotten some emails. People are concerned about ordering. At this time, there should be no problems getting any packages sent to you. I want to also let people know that one of the really great things that we've been doing for a while now is our live office hours. If you need a boost of confidence or some teaching inspiration, I hope that you would take advantage of it. So our live office hours is a free teacher webinar. It's a Zoom room meeting. We have a topic of the month, and you, when you register for our live office hours, which is free, you can ask your questions. So the end of this month, our live office hours topic is about lesson pacing. Lesson pacing is a question that we get a lot, and it's a really good question. A lot of teachers are teaching short lessons, like 30 minutes. How do you get it all in? So we basically do a 45-ish minute presentation based around your questions. And if you are attending the live office hours, which I hope you do because they are so much fun, we actually have draws and prizes at the end, so you can win a prize. This month, we're giving away some of our online courses for teachers that are interested in on-demand learning. And I'm really excited. And I have to say, it's really wonderful to see teachers, to answer people's questions, to bring a sense of community to people in a very affordable way. Obviously, it's free. And we've really enjoyed it. And seeing your questions helps the team at Full Voice Music put out great content, like our podcasts, like new resources. And speaking of new resources, I want everyone to know that we are very close and working on our songs and studies for kids level 1. We are working on the final touches. We're getting the backing tracks ready. We're working on the studies. It's going to be amazing. And if you're new to our products, Songs and Studies for Kids are songbooks and activity books for your young singers. So Introductory A and Introductory B was developed and researched for children ages 6 and 7, like your absolute beginners. So these are age and ability appropriate studies and songs that kids love to sing. So level 1 will be coming out soon. We're thinking probably close to the summer. It'll be ready to go, and we're very excited. We have wonderful songs in that collection. I also want to let everybody know that Teaching Singing to Children and Young Adults by Dr. Ginevra Williams is now available in many different formats. First of all, it is available as an ebook from Kobo. Kobo is a Canadian company, and they are available worldwide. You do not need to have a Kobo reader or any reader to access the digital copy of the book. You just need the app, and the app is free. You can put the app on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, and you can access that. The Kobo version of Ginevra's book is on sale. So if you go to kobo.com and you search Teaching Singing to Children and Young Adults, you will be able to take advantage of that. So if you are a digital book reader, that is probably your best place. I also want to let everyone know that Ginevra's book is also available through your university. It's in the university library system, so you can get it through your university. You can use the Libby app, the university reading app, Libby, Libby. If you have a library pass, a library card, digital library card. What a world we live in, right? So you can get it through there, and of course, it's available on our website. And it is now available as a paperback and a hardcover book on Amazon. So if you are using Amazon for your purchases, that's a great place to get it. And of course, from our websites, fullvoicemusic.com, and for our friends in Australia, au.fullvoicemusic.com. You can get the book there. So that is a little bit of housekeeping. I do want to send a very big hug out to all of you who are navigating the news every day and trying to keep your wits about you and to stay positive. And I want to remind everybody, and this is so important, the work that we do in our voice studios, where we are seeing the student in front of us, where we are holding space for them, we are helping them to discover their voices and build confidence in their voices, to use their voice without fear, has always been an important job. But I think now more than ever, it is an essential job. And if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling worn out, if you're feeling scared, if you're feeling frightened, I feel that every day. I cycle through all of those things. But I want you to know that the work that you do is so, so very important. And Full Voice is here and has always been here to support voice teachers, to make teaching fun and easier and inspired. And I always say this at the end of my podcast, so I'm going to put it at the front of my podcast. I wish everybody inspired teaching where at the end of the day, you can hold your head up high and know that you have made a difference in somebody's life. That is so important. So there's my hug from Nova Scotia, Canada, to all my friends worldwide. Keep fighting the good fight and keep doing what you're doing. It's important. Now, without further delay, my new wonderful friend, Jeff Costello. Welcome to the Full Voice podcast. My new friend and colleague, Jeff Costello. How are you?
I am great, Nikki. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's wonderful to meet you in person. We have been like online friends forever. And of course, you are a wonderful member of our Facebook group. And that's kind of why we're here today. But I've been following you forever. You're a musician, a music director. You have decades of experience, and you always share really wonderful strategies and teaching and inspiration. And I'm really glad that we can talk today.
Well, thank you. That's lovely of you to say. Yeah, I've been at it a while, that's for sure. And many
Well, I
different
would I
lanes.
would love for you to let everybody know a little bit of your background, and all the amazing work you've done over the years.
Awesome, glad to. Started out musically, just playing by ear on the piano in our basement at home. We had an old upright, and taught myself a lot of stuff by ear from the radio. Ended up wanting to become a percussionist in sixth grade band and learned that we needed piano lessons to do that. So I hopped into a year of piano lessons in fifth grade, which was way too late because my ear had already very much developed as far as where things were on the keyboard. So it was a very frustrating experience to try to learn that kind of old, and ended up being a drummer in band, played all through marching band in high school. Was never a xylophone keyboard instrument player, was just played drums. Senior year of high school, got kind of drafted into the top choir. The choir director heard me sing a song with jazz band, which was a first for our jazz band, and it became infatuated with singing. I had always sung, just around the house, in the shower, whatever, in the car as a kid too. But I had never really been a singer until senior year of high school, junior year of high school with jazz band, and senior year with the madrigal singers. And then college came along, and then I learned that I was going to need to audition to be a music major. So pause that for a minute. I think students today, younger students today, are a little more in the category that I was in, very green, very much hadn't had private lessons until later in life. So auditioned, got in as a voice major, and did the undergrad thing, did the whole classical, because that's all there was then, and mostly it's kind of all there still is today in the States, with a few exceptions. Thankfully, we're getting there. And always played in rock bands concurrent with being a voice major in college. Yeah, it was this crazy situation where in the music department at Central Michigan University, I was the rocker dude, and to the booking agents in the rock world, I was the choir boy
Oh my gosh.
because I was going in between, and honestly, it took me after college and still doing both, church choir director, all classical stuff, rock band stuff on the other weekends of the month. And it really took me, probably if I think back, till like age 30, where I could sit back and, as objectively as possible, say to myself, I think I'm pretty good at both genres. I can cross train here, perform in a classical setting and hang ish, and perform in a rock setting and do okay there too. So it did take a while to really get both. And then was playing in a touring rock band from freshman year of college, played in rock bands, and then the touring stuff was 91 to 94. We played 300 shows a year, 6 nights, 14 different U.S. states in what was known back then as the A Circuit Rock Club scene in the States. And then when the music started changing in the early 90s and the fun, party style, dancey, Bon Jovi, Journey, Def Leppard style rock music went out of favor, in favor for a darker, more introspective, and what they called it was grunge, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, etc. The whole music world changed to, MTV changed, the radio changed, everything changed in that area. And that, unfortunately, in my opinion, is what was the catalyst in leading, one of the catalysts. There are others, there are other things, other factors, of course, but that led to the closing of countless legendary rock bars throughout the
Yes.
Midwest.
Yep. It did the same thing
Midwest.
here
So,
in Canada.
yeah.
My husband, who also played a lot of shows and did some touring, he talks about that time, how it just really changed a lot of the industry.
Yeah, and it forced us to, shift gears. And our lead guitar player went to the construction industry. He's owned his own construction company for 20 years. I had to go back to university to get the teaching part of my music degree, which I had switched out of like junior year of undergrad because of how busy I was in the rock bands. There was no way I was going to be in a classroom student teaching at 8 a.m., having gotten home from the bar at 4 on a Wednesday night, to Thursday
Right.
morning, because we were playing 4 to 6 nights a week already. So I went back into that, and as I got my second bachelor's with a teaching certificate, the choir teaching job in my hometown opened up.
Oh.
And it was incredible serendipity. I ended up getting the gig, did that for 24 years. Most of that time, I called it the trying to wear the suit era. I tried to fit into the suit. We did the choral festival thing. I got invited to apply to be an all-state honors choir director once. Didn't end up getting that, but submitted my stuff. And then in 2008, 2008, I discovered Jeannie Lovetri and somatic voice work. And one of the first things I heard her say at the very first Level 1 conference that I attended was, all music styles deserve equal respect. There isn't a set of genres or a particular genre that should be held in higher esteem as far as just general respect of the sounds of the music, that took over any other. So I went back, and it sort of lit a fire under my choir directing life world, and I started shifting. I immediately, the following year, didn't do choral festival anymore. We just added another concert in March. I didn't feel like it was authentic to me to be picking songs from a required list and singing in a style that I had thoroughly learned to appreciate, but didn't really grow up loving. So it just really wasn't my lane. And once I shifted a little bit more toward the CCM direction with my choirs, it exploded. And by 2016, we were doing full-blown rock concerts for spring concerts with a drums accompaniment, the whole band on risers behind the choir. And we did 3 of those, 16, 17, 18, and 19. We did 4 of those. And then in 2020, everything came crashing down, and we didn't. And that's when I hopped off that bus, and that's when I opened Zealand Academy of Music, where I teach about 45 students a week. Spring break here for us this week, so I have a much lighter schedule this week, which is nice. And I teach voice, piano, guitar, drums, bass.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What a journey. Thank you for sharing that. I love to know, the journey, really sets us on our courses, and wow, that's incredible. Now, you've also done music directing, like musical directing, and for a while you were a church choir director.
Yes.
So you've worn so many hats, like many of us, right, along the way.
Sound engineer for many
Sound
years.
engineer, yes. You actually, that's one of the things that I noticed when you first joined our forum, that you were so helpful in helping people that were looking for microphones or systems for their studios. That's a common question that we often get. So I want to get into it with you, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise.
And I want to set the listeners for the podcast up. So, I got this Facebook message from Jeff, and it was an apology. It's like, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to cause so much mayhem in the forum. And I was like, oh crap. And then, because I had taken Facebook off of my phone, and I was kind of taking a hiatus due to the news coming in, and I thought, for my mental health, I'll just take a little break. Everything's great in our group. And of course, I went running to my computer. I got on there, and I kind of chuckled to myself, because I was like, okay. So I want to share with the listeners what you posted, and then we're going to talk about why this caused so much discomfort and so much polarization of our teachers. So
Here we go.
Here we go. All right, to my listeners, buckle up. So Jeff posted in Voice Teachers for Young Singers, y'all, please, please, please have your beginners sing along with the artist in a YouTube vid until you feel that they're ready to try a karaoke version of a song they're working on. Another version of this would be to make sure you are singing along with them at first in rep for several lessons if they lack the confidence and skill to handle singing them by themselves. I feel this is a huge issue with teaching young singers that should be so easy to fix. I say this because the vast majority of us did not need this assistance when we started in voice lessons. So rather than scratching our heads about why the student in front of us struggles with intonation, let them sing to a lyric video. And then that started. And so let's start with that. What was your inspiration for posting that? What made you want to share that information with the group? I think it's really great information, but what happened, or what were you seeing that was like, we need to talk about this?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I've seen and heard it happening in other studios around me, just overhearing it. Oh, that kid's struggling. At that point, why even go on and let them continue to probably not gain any confidence or feel good about what they're doing? I mean, we can't crawl into them and feel their awareness. So perhaps they don't know. The student might not realize their intonation isn't where it needs to be. But at that point, it's just, in my opinion, so much easier to hop over to a lyric version of the video. Now, this is assuming the teacher is using YouTube or some other type of canned accompaniment track as an accompaniment, which when I present on using somatic voice work with teens and choirs at the Lovetri Institute, one of the first things I say is, if you're going to teach CCM styles, don't be afraid or ashamed to use YouTube or some other internet web audio source, CD, as your accompanist. It's totally fine. If you're going to play, a pop rock song and just accompany it with a keyboard, that's okay, but it's not really authentic to the style. If the recording has drums and guitar and bass and maybe other instruments in it, why not let the student experience the full experience of the piece, and also sing that they should perhaps also be on a microphone and singing to a set of speakers. Even in a smaller studio, I still do that. My CCM students sing on a mic, handheld mic, not for warm-ups or like exercises, working on technique or anything, but when we get to the rep, we usually grab a mic because that's how that style is performed. Now, my music theater students, probably not, because they're going to have a head-worn mic, not a handheld. But I went in a couple directions with that, Nikki, so I apologize for that.
No, it's all part of it, and I think this is really important to discuss. I want to just circle back there and going through the 80 or so comments in that thread. There was a lot of people that were insulted that you would even think of using a lyric video or like a YouTube video as a resource. Like, let's start with that. And I love what you said. Like, there's no shame in allowing students to use backing tracks or YouTube videos. Like, there's that right there was a big obstacle for a lot of teachers. And I agree with you. Like, contemporary music is not, I was always fortunate because at recitals, my poor husband has played every Taylor Swift song on the guitar. And of course they could never be in the original key because the kids, he had to transpose them. So, but those songs do not work with a piano accompaniment. Like, they just, the kids aren't going to sing them well if we did that, right?
Right.
So let's start with that. Why are people struggling so much with just the thought of using a karaoke track or a YouTube video?
I think I said to you when we were having our little chat right after the comment section kind of blew up. I guess I thought we were past the era of classical only mindset. Just to put a very overarching general. I tend to overgeneralize horribly just to make a point, whereby, like what I said earlier about keyboard skills, I don't possess the keyboard skills to accompany my students at a recital. Full stop. Can I bang out chords and play a rock song with them? 100%. Can I grab a guitar and play a Taylor Swift song with them at a recital? 100%. Can I read chord charts? Yes. Where are these students going to sing other than at a recital with for our studio? They're going to sing in a church. They're going to sing in probably a music theater show at school. The music theater situation will probably come with a book with sheet music. The church situation, the vast majority of churches that have gone to the praise and worship style, the modern style, rock band kind of setup, they're all reading a lyric sheet with chord charts. Maybe the keyboard players have sheet music, standard notation. Everybody else in the band is learning by ear from a chord chart. So you learn your own rhythm. So, of course, learning to read sheet music or sight read is an incredibly valuable skill. It can't be understated. I have students that are working. We have high school choir auditions coming up in the next few weeks. So I have lots of my high school students working on sight reading, working on the audition song, which is a Renaissance era piece. So I go in a million directions in lessons. I was really referring to a kind of a smaller subset of teachers like me who aren't gonna play, and I don't teach arias and art songs either, because that's not what my students are interested in working on.
In the message that you had sent both Dana and I after you had posted that, we were talking a little bit, and I was also a little, disappointed with I feel like we should be way past this, one way of teaching, but that thread brought up a lot of, I'm going to use the word demons in our industry, not just the classical versus contemporary, but even just the master apprentice approach versus student led. And a lot of comments were about, I don't want my students to even listen to the vocalist because they'll just end up copying the singer and they'll pick up all the bad habits. So again, we've got master apprentice versus student led. And then we also have the contemporary voice training mindset versus classical mindset. So if we were to look at just to say how we are teaching our students, when you're working with one of your singers and they come to you and they're like, I want to sing this song, how often do you reference or check the YouTube video and talk about the original performance with your students?
100% of the time. Yeah. I'm so glad you went in this direction. I'll go back in time. I don't remember the specific moment, but I do remember what it felt like when it probably stemmed from watching Jeannie LeVetri work with someone who brought a piece of rep to work with, and Jeannie had never heard of the piece or the show that it was from. And you're out there in the audience going, how on earth is she going to work with someone on this song having never heard this song? And 15 minutes later, everyone's sitting with their chins in their lap because she totally worked with that person on that song that she had never heard of before, because she knows what she's doing and just knows the voice and knows what a song is supposed to do in a show. The moment in my teaching at school, when I was teaching middle school choir kids, the moment I realized I didn't need to be the absolute expert on everything in music in this classroom, my life just went, it was so freeing to say, I don't know, but I bet we can find out. I happen to be Facebook friends with Roger Emerson. Let me shoot him a message. You might find out before the end of class.
Okay, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I am so glad you brought that up because I think that is one of the things holding back so many teachers is that they think they have to have all of the answers. And I too remember that. I remember my first decade of teaching being under enormous pressure to have all the answers and show quick results and make sure everybody was like a rock star, and it was stressful. Like teaching was not a joy for me in the beginning. It was misery because I didn't know what I was going to get. And then I felt that I had to have all the answers. Thank you so much. And I agree. I don't know. Let's find out.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, just the fact that literally, I mean, I shouldn't say everyone because, I in the back of my head, I could pull out a few song titles that my students are currently working on. But having someone walk in and ask them, what do you want to work on today? Me ask them, what do you want to work on today? And the more experienced the student is, the more they know. Oh, my chesty mix is a little wiggly today. Maybe can we work on something like that, or and then try to make it work in a song too. A 12-year-old is likely not going to have that type of knowledge yet, but yeah, to back out, to zoom way out. I think this helps me deal with change in my life better with like life events because every student walks into my studio, I'm not sure what'll happen. I hope we can get somewhere with whatever they want to work on. But yeah, for me, it's completely student driven. The motivated high school and middle school kids know what songs they want to pick for audition. They know we put together an audition book. They learn what an audition book is, and that they should have different genres. So obviously speaking mostly music theater here. My adults that want to sing karaoke, or I have a guitar student who we also sing a little bit, who's in the top rock band in the area, and I've had several of those just in the past handful of years come to me for like voice help. To get through, it's like the 8 shows a week thing. Well, if you're a working musician, you're doing solo shows on patios in the summer in this area 3 nights a week, and then you're doing 2 weddings on a Friday and Saturday night. It's, you talk 8 shows a week for a leading role that might have 4 or 5 big songs. If you're playing in a wedding band, you might have 30.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
a huge, huge difference. 3 hours. So, yeah, you got to keep them in shape.
In addition to being able to say, I don't know, there's something really beautiful about our students teach us so much, right? Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
During the pandemic, when we were first getting started, and navigating Zoom and online lessons and trying to figure out what life was going to be like, I had always kind of allowed my students to bring in their stuff, but I literally was like, just pick something you want to sing right now. You can sing along with the singer. I don't care. We're testing the sound. We're just something that's going to make you feel good. And boy, did my students bring beautiful music and new artists that I had never heard of. And it was such a wonderful experience to know what music was in their hearts and what music they were listening to. And boy, did my lessons have a complete reworking of what a voice lesson was during that time. There's a wonderful saying, and I've been using it a lot lately, which is, within crisis, there is great opportunity. Right? And I found that through the pandemic, I just letting them lead, show me the music, and it totally transformed a lot of the ways that I approach things. And I think that's what we saw in that thread in YouTube was people who are like, this is how I teach, and it's this way, and it's always this way. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was your original post that I read out at the beginning of the podcast. Was about an opportunity and how many teachers then assumed that no music literacy was being taught. Like, right? Why is that? What are we doing there?
I mean, I get it. it's a little, from my original post, it's a little obvious that that's not obvious. I guess obvious is too strong. It could be inferred that sheet music is probably not being used, which there's a whole nother topic of trying to properly, correctly notate R&B, pop, rock style stuff. It doesn't work. I mean, anybody who's ever listened to a MIDI / computerized recording and heard how robotic it ends up sounding if it's played literally note for note, because the type of notation that's being executed, there isn't notation to accurately reflect it. So, especially when it comes to rhythms, when I start youngsters on pop stuff, and then we talk about how challenging these rhythms are without them really even realizing it, because they're just kind of singing along. It's like, let me show you what this would look like written out.
Well,
and
okay.
It's all dotted 16th compos.
There is several Hal Leonard books where they have tried to notate the jazz singer's phrasing. And they're garbage. I can't use that. They're impossible for a beginner to read. And of course, if you're studying a jazz standard, the head is the head, but you're not supposed to keep doing anyhow. It was like dotted 16th notes tied to like dotted 32nd notes. Like, you can't read that. And how do you feel that? And I certainly see that in our church choir, where they've bless them, they've transcribed the contemporary music, vocal music, like, My Chains Are Gone, for the choir. And it's just a hot mess of not well-phrased music for non-readers.
Yeah, and in that situation, in my humble opinion, it would serve the choir very well to hear a recording of a really great, authentic choir performing that the way that it's, originally intended to be performed. Which, if we talk about the way something was originally intended to be performed, we have to apply that to all styles. And by that, we mean, if we're going to do a pop rock song, maybe having piano accompaniment isn't the way, and it's not that it's wrong, but if we're talking authentically authentic here, we should try to be as, true to the recording, true to the original recording as possible. If we have a student singing a belt song from a Broadway show, we wouldn't want them to flip to head register on the big belty notes, right? That's the same idea as we wouldn't want to do that in a pop rock song if that singer also doesn't do that. Now, we can move things to an easier key, make it a little more manageable, but I think what we're getting down to here is authenticity of, are we staying true to the original recording or the original version of this, or what the composer intended? Mm-hmm. I think that was a wording from one of the comments.
One of the other comments that came up again and again and again was the worry that the student was going to be imitating the vocals that they heard. Now, again, in talking about authenticity, as somebody myself that studied jazz, I don't know. Listening to the great singers was part of, that's how you learn.
That's part of the training.
It's part of the training. Yeah. And back in the day, we didn't have YouTube. I didn't have the world of music in my hands. I had to go to the library, or I had to buy a CD, hours in the library listening to it. And what was amazing is, like, long after I graduated, and YouTube, then I could actually see like original videos of these people performing, and that was an education. How they moved on stage, how they talked how they interacted with the other musicians, like that was incredible to see. And I never had that going to school. And yet we have people who are like, we don't want them listening, we don't want them emulating. So how do we get over this? How do we fix this?
To me, for someone coming from the possible mindset of, I don't want my students listening to the original artist, I think that is a hugely missed opportunity. in the lesson. Let's listen to that singer together so that I can say, listen to a verse and a chorus, pause. Okay, ask the student, what do you think? How do you feel about this person as a vocalist? What do you think of their singing? Then we can go into stuff like, and here's the tricky part with recorded and processed music. How loudly does it sound like that person is singing? If we were in the room standing next to them singing, and you hear an early, something from Adele's early career or Whitney stuff, those people were singing loudly compared to, obviously, the opposite example today would be a Billie Eilish, who now, by the way, we have several Billie Eilish clones already, younger artists coming up in that style. And we can call that wrong singing or incorrect or bad singing, but that's not going to help the singer who wants to sound like that and maybe make a recording with that breathy effect added. That's not going to hurt their voice to add that effect. So these are all opportunities, and I always qualify what I say. I work with original artists too. I have a couple young kids, like when I say young, 13, written many songs, play acoustic guitar. Whenever I give them suggestions on their original material or their singing, especially if it's a stylistic choice like breathiness, I say, you're going to get my perspective with my level of experience, which means my musical brain was shaped by the 70s and 80s, pop rock, light rock, Barry Manilow. I'm a huge fan of from back in the day. So if you can throw me a key change, you got me.
I love it.
But that way, I'm saying to you, in my brain, I'm an expert on this, but you don't need to have me be your be-all, end-all deciding factor on how you handle this chord change or when you go to the bridge in an original piece. I'm getting away from singing specifically, but it's all part of being a guide and not being oh, no, that's wrong. I've had so many, oh, no, that's wrong moments that I could share from teachers that the way that I felt leaving that space, I don't ever want anyone to feel that way leaving Zealand Academy of Music. I'm here to lift up.
Thank you so much. This conversation has come up many times on our podcast, and I love that it's coming up, which is we partner. I love what you said. We're a guide. We're a guide. And I wish in my own journey, because I struggled in my first few years of college because I was so used to somebody telling me what was right and what was wrong. And then I am so blessed to have had amazing teachers that recognized that there were limitations on that in my previous training, and that opened things up. And we're like, no, we're here to break rules. We're here to do this stuff. But it wasn't easy for me in my early 20s coming from that other background to really embrace that. Like, it was hard. And I love that we are having this conversation. I am a guide. Suggestions, support, cheerleader, and to help them find more tools. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree. I also think age and experience are factors here. For you and I, you've already mentioned us of a certain age. You're clearly nowhere near my age, but what I just described as the way I teach now. Could 25-year-old me have even been that? Especially if maybe dealing with a student who's older than me. It's like when you talk about being a school teacher. Your first 5 or 6 years, you're horrified by the thought of parent-teacher conferences. By the middle to the end of your career, you can't wait for parent-teacher conferences or to have another adult walk in the room. Because you're like, oh, cool, somebody's going to get to watch this. Whereas at first, it's like, oh, no, it's imposter syndrome. I still have it. It's an ugly beast that we all have to. It's like, maybe I suck at this. No, we're doing fine. We're all fine.
I love that. Thank you for saying that. I think that was the other thing that came up in that thread with the teachers' comments was just people want to do the best they can. And I see that in the majority of the comments. We only had to delete a few comments from the thread. But again, even in the comments that are less than kind, there is somebody there that is passionate about helping, and they're just being challenged in how to help. So I see that. We still delete the comment if it's a mean comment, but I understand where it's coming from. I think going back to the age, and this is something that my husband and I talk about a lot, because I taught for 34 years. He taught for 6 years or whatever, but we always joke, we survived the Hunger Games, but there is a bit of, with the music now and music constantly changing, where it's hard to keep up. It's hard to stay relevant. You know, after a certain age, you know, performing, it's like, I don't know, what could I perform at my age that would be authentic and real and not ridiculous? I can sing pretty much anything I want, but can I pass it off as a woman in her 50s, right? And, you know, ageism and all that stuff. But I think that has a lot to do with it, is if we can embrace some of these tools like YouTube, like technology, it's going to help keep us relevant and help us serve our students better.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Also, I'll go one level deeper. I don't think we need to be relevant, especially with newer popular styles. I think there's no way we can keep up with the younger generation who listens to that stuff all the time. And here's what's crazy. The whole international music scene, like the top levels, the people that, I'll use the term on the radio, even though what's that anymore? The people that are performing, let's say the people who are popular enough to perform, to do an arena tour, right? 10 to 20,000 seat arenas. I'll just give you a specific example. My 24-year-old son and I, a couple times now, have seen, there are three brothers from New York City called AJR. They're big enough to do an arena tour. They're just starting up another one right now. $300 for tickets in Detroit. And we're like, oh, maybe we're not even going. So this is how popular this band is. The day after seeing them at a local arena, 16,000 seat arena, I had an 18-year-old voice student who plays guitar, writes original music. I told her that I went to see that show. She had never heard of them.
Right.
So we don't have we are long past the era of everyone at school knows Don't Stop Believin'. They know Living in a Prayer. They know, you name, they know I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston. They've all been Rickrolled. They know, because that song's on the radio, that song's on MTV, and that's how we consumed music for the first, from 1900 to 2000, let's say. So for that century, the way to consume music was everybody consumed it the same way. Now that's no longer the case. And it's impossible for us to keep track of it. And going back to something you said earlier during the pandemic, when the fourth or fifth 11-year-old girl in a row wanted to sing Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo, I'm like, okay, click, who is this person? And, turns out she's had quite a career already. And not unlike Olivia Rodrigo, started out as a Broadway brat, so to speak. And, this person who's now on the radio has actually gotten a lot of experience and probably has taken tons of lessons. So it ties in with that. I'm not going to try to be the expert on everything as far as music styles or singing styles, but we'll listen. I'll use my analytical ears to hear voice function, what type of registration, how loud does it sound like they're singing, because loudness will directly impact registration in the middle pitches. This all comes from stuff I've learned from Jeannie Lovetri at the Lovetri Institute.
So good. I love that. I love the conversation about volume, because that's one that I have had with a lot of my students, because again, in recorded music and using microphones, they are often, and I did this a lot with my adults that wanted to do karaoke singing. they often don't realize that what they're hearing. I would always joke. I was like, it's kind of a lie what you're hearing, and I would ask them how loud do you think that is, and let's sing it in the room, and then let's sing it with the microphone, and we would go back and forth, and I think that that conversation about asking the kids, right? I mean, how many times do people ask in our forum for repertoire suggestions? And I mean, what do they want to sing? But what do they like? There seems to be no consideration for the preferences of the student. And again, that's an assumption. That's a blanket. Probably they have asked the student, but I mean, how important is it to talk to our students and get them having that dialogue and also that active listening? Like, what do you hear? Right? And I love what you said about it has to be in the lesson, because like active listening, guided listening is something that is a skill that they don't have.
Right. And they also might not know how to select something that fits their voice, which is completely fine. And then, we go back to the technology side of it. If you use the browser Chrome, the Chrome web browser, you can get an extension called Transpose. So if you're in Chrome, just Google Transpose Chrome extension. It'll come up and it'll say, do you want to activate it? Just push the button and activate it. Then whenever you're in YouTube, there's a little yellow button on the top upper right where the extensions are in Chrome, which if you're not familiar with that, you need to find them. A little box opens up and you can put the song in any key. So you can, if you have a baritone that wants to sing "Don't Stop Believin'," for example, done. It's just a little lower. Or a female voice singing a song that was originally sung by a male, or vice versa. Those tools are there.
The tools are so helpful. That was a game changer for me, the Transpose. But I had some students that felt weird about, well, am I allowed to is that that in itself is a lesson in the studio. Like, of course you transpose it. They feel that they're not a good enough singer if they don't sing it in the original key. Do you ever deal with that?
Oh, of course. Yes,
how do you deal with that?
time.
What do you tell them? How do you make them feel better about that?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is you point out the fact that the person on the recording is in her upper 20s and the person in the room with you is 12. Big difference. Hard for the 12-year-old to really fully admit that they are going to agree with you on that many times. But, so let's set goals. Okay. Let's say you're 12 and let's work on this song a little bit and then maybe put it aside, do something else. And then maybe if we're still in lessons in a year, let's get it out again, especially with our young men who, sometimes when we hit our voice change, we kind of do this, wonk, now we're in the basement. And then over the next handful of years, we kind of hope. And quite often, especially if they're working with somebody, the high notes will start to kind of reappear. And Waving Through a Window is a perfect example of a song that an 8th grade boy is probably not going to be able to do in the original key. And I'm thinking of a very specific student of mine who's going to attend the University of Michigan starting in the fall.
Oh,
on a scholarship
congratulations.
to their MT department. Right. Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's been amazing. He can now do that in the original key. Well, he's 18 now, which still 18 is even young to do a song like that. But two, let me bounce this back at you. Seeing as I went to that song in my brain. Don't you think Broadway is sort of easing back on the everything's got to be belted? Stuff's a little mixier now.
Yes, and I am grateful for that. And that was a hard pill to swallow for a lot of my young boys, and even the School of the Arts that was in Hamilton, they were assigning pieces to these kids that was a lot of head shaking, and and they were not, like, I would find them transposed tracks and have to advocate for that. Mm-hmm. I love that the musical theater scene seems to be kind of mellowing out. And I hope, is that because we're seeing more and more challenges with voices singing these shows, or is it just composers that are just trying to find more colors and in singing?
Right. It's probably multiple factors, but when I have a very specific memory from probably 10 years ago of a very, an ENT with a very high profile name say to a group at a conference in a presentation, there's no such thing as a vocally healthy alphaba 6 months into a run. That's a red flag. That's a huge red flag. So if we change the way we approach Defying Gravity and The Wizard and I, maybe we can go, a little. You also made me think of something else. Situations where we kind of can't change the key. And here, this is a really good topic because people need a why. The School of Rock type stuff, and I don't mean to single out that organization at all, but if your students are going to be singing in a rock band or singing in a School of Rock situation where there are guitars, there are, and you and I talked about this before we started recording, there are songs that are written on the guitar that kind of need to stay in that key. Now, we can detune the instrument a little bit if we need to go maybe as much as a full step down. It does impact the intonation slightly, but we can get away with it like on an acoustic or an electric. There are also, but just know before I go into the technology, there are songs that just can't be played in a different key. So they kind of need to be in that key. For me, then we just go a little headier, especially with younger singers. Well, Ann Wilson doesn't sound like that on the high G in Crazy on You. Well, we're not ready for that. We need to be able to perform 6 songs in a row at this upcoming performance with your little rock showcase thing. So we're going to have to make things so that they work, so that you can still speak after, right? So it's realistic. Is it now? Here we are back to fully authentic or not? Well, when they're 12 or 13, sometimes we can bend the authenticity of the registration situation to respect their vocal health. One more thing on the technology. There are pedals now that you can plug your guitar into. The one that my rock band was using when my rock band retired in 2019. It was crazy. We retired in the end of 2019, and then in the beginning of 2020, everything else stopped too. We used a pedal called the Digitech Drop. The company is Digitech, and the pedal is called Drop. They're not cheap. They're almost $300, I think, but you can detune a guitar, clean or distorted sounding, as much as a fourth down, and it's not very artifacty. You go farther than a fourth, it gets a little wonky sounding. Yeah, it must have incredibly fast processing involved to do that. So we were doing Don't Stop Believin' in D instead of E major. Did any musicians that came and saw us play that song for 10 years in the key of D ever say anything about, you're not doing that, you're a different key? No.
They threw some shade. No.
Right. It's still high in the key of D for
exactly. Well, I want to thank you first of all for participating so beautifully in our group, and really this is a great opportunity. As much as there was conflict within the thread, these posts I hope are helpful. And to teachers that might not know about how helpful it is to use YouTube, certainly the transpose plugin in Chrome, that's a huge teaching tip. And I hope teachers take advantage of that and encourage our students to change keys when necessary. And I really appreciate that you're advocating for voice health and the beautiful work we can do in the contemporary voice setting. You have some really cool opportunities coming up that you wanted to share. So I hope you will do that with our listeners.
Yes, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for giving the opportunity to do a little advertising. We do have Jeannie Lavetry is hosting a webinar series that's coming up on Thursdays, starting April 24.
Ooh,
So you
that's
can go to
coming up.
somaticvoicework.com to register for those. She's always amazing. And then this summer we've got the Lavetry Institute. This year we're running June 14 to June 25. So you can go to the Lavetry Institute. You can just Google Lavetry Institute
I'll
to
put links on the show notes for everybody as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And for any voice teachers who are interested in learning more about teaching contemporary commercial singing, which, by the way, contemporary commercial music, CCM, is a term and an acronym that Jeannie Lavetry coined in early 2000s, I believe, as a replacement for non-classical, because why would you call something
Right?
non? That's a
Non.
negative connotation term. So all of that information and education is there. That's how so many teachers over the course of the last 20 or so years that we've had the Institute have learned, become a little more comfortable
Sure.
in the CCM lane. My university's doing a Rent next year. Help me
Amazing.
learn how to teach that. No, that was hypothetical, not me. But those teachers are the teachers who come because
Right.
their career is, they realize in their career they need to kind of learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everyone needs to learn how to do this. People are always welcome to stay in their own lane if it's not CCM too. That's totally fine. I've been on faculty with the Lavetry Institute for 10 years now, I think. I'm also the expert on audio equipment, and I'm the sound engineer for the Institute. So
Oh, amazing.
I wear many hats, and I enjoy wearing a lot of hats. I enjoy teaching multiple different instruments and genres throughout
I love
my
it.
teaching day.
I love
Thanks
it.
so
Well,
much, Nikki.
Jeff, I will have you back because
Cool.
in just having this conversation, I can think of 5 more podcast topics we should talk about.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And so again, I want to shout out to Jeff for, participating in our forum. And I also want to shout out to our listeners. If you are part of the Voice Teachers for Young Singers Facebook forum, our goal is to inspire conversation and inspiration for teachers who are working with young singers, and I appreciate everybody who's participating in such a positive way and offering their opinions and these, I don't want to say it, these controversial threads. There's so much learning in them. There's so many opportunities in them, and I want to thank Jeff for shaking up ruffling some feathers and shaking things up, because I think it's really helpful if we can take a step back from our egos and our insecurities and our imposter syndrome. There's a lot of wonderful information shared, and I want to thank you for that. And we will have you back, Jeff. I could talk to you all afternoon, so thank you so very much. I'm going to put all of the links to your information in the show notes so people can reach out. And I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Nikki. It has been a riot. Likewise, I could chat with you all day.
Awesome. A very special thank you to Jeff for that wonderful conversation. And just so you know, I was talking to Jeff after we ended the recording. Jeff has had decades of experience as a middle school choir director, and I think I need to have him come back to talk about being a middle school choir director. And obviously he survived, so we'll have Jeff back on the podcast. And I put links in the show notes if you'd like to reach out. Contact Jeff or continue the conversation. Jeff's also a wonderful member of our Facebook community, Voice Teachers for Young Singers. Thank you, Jeff, for participating in a positive and inspiring way. A friendly reminder, if you would like to participate in any of our live office hours, how do you learn about our live office hours and get the link to register? You have to sign up for our newsletter. And just so you know, I got better things to do than spam people with a lot of noise. I send out great tips and ideas and thoughts about teaching, and of course opportunities to participate in our live office hours, our workshops, our courses. We share lots of great information. So if you would like to be participate in our live office hours, sign up for our newsletter. And if you would like to see the backlog of our live office hours from the past year, they're on our YouTube channel. Yes, Full Voice Music has a YouTube channel. Our song download tracks are there. Our sample tracks are there. Our podcasts live on YouTube as well now. And our live office hour videos are all there. If you would like some incredible professional development while enjoying some food in your pajamas or your yoga pants, that's the place to be. As always, my friends, I am wishing you strength and courage and peace during this tumultuous time. And as always, I'm wishing you inspired, life-changing teaching and happy singing.